Väki is this animistic concept in Finnish folklore. It is very similar to the Great Spirit in Native American myths, the Chi in China, Mana in Polynesia, the Force in Star Wars. It is this belief that everything is made of energy, that there is this web of energy around us. It's the power of every individual person. It's the soul and the power. Like all the animals, the trees, stones, rivers, everything has väki inside them.
Hello and welcome to the Spirit Box podcast, where we explore folklore, magic, the world of the spirits, and everything in between. In this episode, Finnish folklorist, artist, and pagan practitioner Niina Niskanen joins us to explore the ancient waters of Finnish mythology and the animist worldview that shaped her homeland. We dive deep into her upcoming book, Soul of Vellamo Journey with the Finnish Gods of the Sea, a work that traces the evolution of Finland's sea deities from their Neolithic shamanic roots to the later poetic, song-based traditions that survive today. Niina guides us through the three-layered Finnish cosmos, where sea goddesses like Vellamo and the thunder god Ukko still ripple through the culture, where every element, fire, earth, air and water, holds its own väki, a sacred animating force. We talk offerings, sauna rites, hair magic, and the rituals woven into daily life by the fishermen, hunters and healers who lived in a relationship with the spirits around them. From underwater kingdoms and cows of the sea to the boundary-walking goddesses of healing and travel, Niina offers a rare glimpse into the living heart of Finnish pre-Christian belief. She shares personal experiences with deities like Vellamo, Loviatar and mythology, and reflects on how modern environmental spirituality echoes these ancient traditions. We also explore the deep cultural importance of the sauna as a liminal ritual space, birthplace, death house, and magical threshold, and uncover surprising resonance between Finnish folklore, Irish, Baltic, Slavic, and Scandinavian traditions. So join me in this rich, immersive journey into a world where myth, water, and memory are inseparable. Okay, let's get on with the show. Niina Niskanen, I think I got that right. You are very welcome to the Spirit Box. It's lovely to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. So to get the show started to help orientate people, could you tell them a little bit about you, your areas of interest, and the work we're going to talk about today?
All right. I'm Niina. I'm a Finnish folklorist, painter, writer, and illustrator. And my new book, Journey with the Finnish Goddess of the Sea, Soul of Vellamo, is appearing next summer 2026, and it's published by Moonbook's Pagan Portal series. That is exciting. And my interest is mainly Finnish pre-Christian animistic worldview. So I'd say that's my main interest. There's this part of my spirituality that is based on väenusko, which is sort of traditional Finnish paganism, animism, all that. So that's the name that we use about it. It's also called as suomenusko, which means like Finn belief, but they mean the same thing. It's the reconstruction of the old worldview.
Okay.
And I've been very interested about it since I was a teenager, really.
Okay.
So this has been a long process.
Brilliant. Well,
but very interesting one.
Well, I'm really looking forward to hearing about it today. So tell us a little bit about why you decided to write this book and what the book's about.
I think it really came from this desire to connect with this particular deity. I was really interested about this archetype of the sea goddess, like as a global phenomena because we can find sea goddesses from every culture.
Right.
And Vellamo, as the goddess of the sea, I found her very interesting because the worship of this goddess, it goes back to a very long time, to the Neolithic times, the hunter-gatherer times, basically. So about 9,000 years ago, when it was the time of the last ice age.
Wow.
And Finland, Scandinavia, like all the countries that are located by the Baltic Sea, these were all covered in ice 10,000 years ago. And Baltic Sea, that is the youngest sea on our planet. It's only 9,000 years old. So when the ice was melting and all this land was rising, this land that now is Finland, back then, the first people who came here, they came from Siberia. There were tribes that came from the Baltic countries. These people, they worshipped a goddess called Veden Emä, which means the mother of waters. And this was more like a shamanistic goddess, a shapeless feminine spirit.
Right.
But it is believed that Vellamo, the water goddess in the Finnish folklore, she's sort of morphed from this early animistic character. But it is when people in Finland, the tribes, they went from hunting to agriculture. That's when the goddess became more of a human-like and got these features of what we now see with the sort of universal sea goddesses.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And your book mentions that Finnish mythology is built on songs, poems, or spell poems rather than a single unified system. What does that feel like for you as a mythophile and a practitioner? Does this fragmented song-based nature make the tradition more personal and flexible, or more challenging to engage with?
I think it can be challenging in the beginning if you're not familiar with it. I remember when I was like 15 years old and I was trying to read like old poems from the books, the poem collections that we have, the spells. They were quite hard because they're written in Old Finnish. The language is quite flowery. It's very different than the Finnish that we speak today. But then at some point I realized that, oh yeah, they were performed, these spells, and there are songs, literally, these spells. So I need to sing them and I need to chant them. And then that's when they open up a lot more. I started to chant them with drums, with harps.
Right.
And yeah.
No,
They were performed orally to people.
yeah, I think it's such an important thing for us as modern people to understand about this type of mythology and some of our folklores. You're completely correct. It's the same in Ireland. The mythology was performed, it was sung, it was recited to an audience often, and it really changes how people interacted with the stories and related to the stories. I really like that you approached it in that way.
Yes. I've also found it. I know that in Baltic countries it's the same, like in Estonia and Latvia. Also in Lithuania, there is this tradition of performing the mythology is collected in song poems and chants. So we do find that in quite a few different cultures. But yeah, these stories were performed before we had the ways to write them down. So that's good to remember.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were passed on from generations to generations.
So you consider Vellamo, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Vellamo, yes.
Vellamo as a summer goddess, despite being worshipped year round. What one particular summer experience or memory um, do you have on the Finnish coast that you feel perfectly encapsulates her presence or power?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that's something that kind of started this book.
Right.
Say maybe 4 years ago, I started to scuba dive again and snorkel again, since I hadn't done that since I was a child. So I started to go around like my local area to the lakes, to the seashore, and I would go snorkeling and spend time underwater. And then I started to read all these myths about Vellamo at the same time and learn about her. She was one of those goddesses. We don't have lots of myths about her. We have, some stories, some folk songs, but she is a little mysterious.
Right.
And I did read that 200 years ago, and still 100 years ago, it was only every 10th Finnish person who knew how to swim.
Really?
And yes, it's been the history of swimming education has been interesting here. But back then people didn't know how to swim. Not everyone.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why we don't have that many stories about her. If she was this mysterious goddess who lived underwater, how could people access that?
Yeah.
And then those who went they didn't snorkel back then, but diving and swim underneath the water, when they would come back and then they would tell these fantastical stories of the things that they saw there, people would have been amazed by that.
Mm-hmm.
And still today, when we go snorkel or swim, was it then in Northern Europe or anywhere else in the world, it is a different world underwater.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's my best Vellamo memory.
And there's a concept that you describe in the book as väki, as a universe. Väki as a universal energy, and this is really fascinating. Could you explain that to us?
Yes. Väki is this animistic concept in Finnish folklore. It is very similar to the Great Spirit in Native American myths, the Chi in China, Mana in Polynesia, the Force in Star Wars. It is this belief that everything is made of energy, that there is this web of energy around us. It's the power of every individual person. It's the soul and the power. Like all the animals, the trees, stones, rivers, everything has väki inside them.
Right.
So it's the power. It can be seen as a soul or a spirit, like a living entity, but then it can also mean more of a collective a spirit of different things. I can tell you a story about this because it's quite funny.
That would be great.
In the 17th century, I can't now remember the name of the town where this happened. It was somewhere in Finland. The Lutheran church was built into the town, and the townspeople, who were basically pagans, believed in nature spirits. They went to the church for the first time, and they thought that the church was beautiful. It was beautifully lit. There were people singing songs, and the priest seems like a wizard who was very powerful, shaman chanting. And they thought that the väki of the church was powerful. So these people, they stole candles from the church, and then they later on used them in their rituals because the candles had the väki of the church. And I love that story.
That's great. Yeah, I love it. And tell us more about how would people cultivate this in engaging with the gods and spirits, or is it something that they can cultivate, or is it seen as something that's just innate in people?
Yes, it could be cultivated. In Finnish folklore, the main focus point, I believe, has been on the 4 different elements: the fire, earth, air, and what I'm missing now? Water, and then spirit. Those 5, they have their own väki that people worked with. And also it's interesting because the Finnish gods and goddesses, most of them are related to different elements.
Right.
So they're all elementals at the same time. So when people work with the gods and goddesses, they essentially worked with the väki of the different elements. Like, for example, the fishermen, when they went fishing, they sacrificed some of the fish from the lake to the sea god or the sea goddess or the lake spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same with the hunters. When they went hunting, the first catch of the day was usually left as a sacrifice for the forest god.
Right.
Mm. So there was a lot of respect in that sense towards nature. And it kind of depends, because väki could exist in everywhere and in everything. Also in animals. If a snake bit a person, they would invoke the väki of the snake when they were doing a healing ritual for the person that was bitten. Okay. So you would invite. So the väki of the snake could mean all these things that we connect with the snakes, the good things and the bad things. So you would invoke that collective ideas about the snake when you are healing the snake bite. It's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Could you tell us the story of Vellamo and the spinner?
The spinner?
Yes.
I can read it. I have it. I have the book here.
That'd be great.
Can I find it? Vellamo and the spinner. Once upon a time, there was a little house by the shore. One night, the lady of the house heard someone knocking at the door. A beautiful woman stood outside, carrying a basket of fresh wool. She asked the lady if she would kindly card and spin the wool into yarn, as her spinning wheel was broken. In return for the work, she promised a generous payment. The lady agreed, and the mysterious woman left, saying that she would return after a few days. The lady began to card and spin the wool. A few days later, the mysterious woman returned. She examined the wool and stated that she could not accept it because the lady had used her hot water while spinning. The lady reflected on this and realized that she had dipped her fingers with saliva, as it was an old habit she used to tame the bristle hair in the wool. The guest said that she would bring another basket of wool and the lady could keep the spun yarns. After receiving the new basket, the lady used a cup of water to moisten her fingers while spinning. The mysterious woman returned and expressed her gratitude, complimenting the lady on her work. She declared that from that day forward, there would always be fish in the lake for her. The lady was confused, but thanked the guest. Thinking that the basket of yarn had been a generous reward, as the strange woman left, the lady watched her through the window and saw her walk towards the shore. To her astonishment, the woman with her basket walked straight into the waves and vanished. This mysterious woman was Vellamo, the goddess of water. After that encounter, the family never ran out of fish, and the lady knitted beautiful shirts from the yarn for her loved ones.
Lovely. I really enjoyed that story, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. So, like the idea of the heart water as being too human or too personal to the spinner. Like, how do you think that this principle of respecting or acknowledging the boundary between the human and the divine realm, how has that influenced, say, like your own practice your own approach to this work and your worldview?
That's a good question. I think actually this story also describes väki pretty good.
Yeah.
Because back in the days when I have studied like old Finnish folk magic and things like that, people did believe that there was väki also in their hair, in their nails, toenails. Like if someone wanted to do like black magic and harm another person, they would pick their hair or nails and do some spells to harm them. So people actually used to, bury their nails and, dispose them very carefully.
Oh,
so no one could harm them that way.
Right.
Which was really interesting. So in this case, when there is hot water, and it's actually a really lovely way to call saliva hot water, and and it is too human for the sea goddess.
Yeah.
I think it's somewhat a metaphor for the idea in the past that lakes were portals to the other world.
Okay.
And water areas were portals. And it's really fascinating. In my own practice, I don't really care that much about my hair goes somewhere else, or I often leave my hair for birds, for the birds' nests. So I don't really care that much. But I love to study these things. It's just really fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And could you tell us a story then of Vellamo and her cows?
Yeah, sure. I have it somewhere here. That's a bit shorter one, but it's pretty.
Yeah, I love that story. It was really nice.
Yeah. Vellamo and her cows. It was a beautiful morning. Bird was just awakening. A lonely owl would make noise, and little birds were awakening to a new day. The lake was still and covered with mysterious morning mist. Birds on the shore took a flight when the water began to stir. From the water, beautiful cow stepped to the shore, the skin glistening from the sparkling water. They were followed by a woman with her long hair flowing freely. It was Vellamo, the goddess of the sea, lakes, waters, and shores. Vellamo allowed her cows to roam freely in the woods and along the sandy shores. A mortal could hear them from distance, the sounds of bells ringing in the cows' necks, and Vellamo singing with her beautiful voice to the cows. So back in the days in Finland, cows were free to roam in the woods and in the woodlands.
Right.
And it was also believed that Vellamo and her spouse Ahti, they kept underwater cattle underneath their underwater manor. And they also had different underwater animals. They had horses and cats and dogs and chicken and everything you can imagine. There are also descriptions of these underwater villages with blacksmiths and maids and, everyone.
And where, like in that early Finnish culture, were cows seen as in being very important? They were, I think, the primary sign of wealth in Ireland in like the Bronze and Iron Age. Cattle were essentially the most important thing, really. Was it similar in Finland?
Yeah, I would say it was quite similar. The more cows you had, the more farm animals, the wealthier the farm, essentially.
Yeah.
And here in Finland, cows were seen as women's animals. They were sacred animals to Vellamo. And I think it's because, cows are we get milk from cows. And, milk was connected with femininity. So I think that might be the link there.
Right.
But also milk was turned into butter, and a lot of those activities related with cows and milk and churning, that was women's work
Gotcha.
back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Makes sense. Can you tell us about Atola, the underwater kingdom?
Sure. Yes, Ahti is the Finnish god of the sea. He was originally the god of seals, if I remember correctly. At some point, he becomes like the god of lakes and seas, but
Right.
originally he was probably the god of seals. And Ahtola is this the home of the water people in Finnish folklore, and home of the mermaids, home of the sea life, and all these magical water creatures. But it's one of those ideas that are quite mysterious to people because, people did not know that much what was underwater, but
Right.
what did the underwater world look like. I do think it's interesting because in a lot of Finnish folk tales, the different gods and goddesses, they live in these manners, and they are very similar to those humans who worship them.
Mm-hmm.
And when I have studied Baltic folklore, it's very much the same, like in Baltic mythology, the sun god, Thieves, he lives in a manor, and he has this like sun cattle, which is quite cute.
Sun
And,
cattle. Wow.
yeah, sun horses, and well, he's the god of the sun, and god of the fertility and things like that.
Right.
But it's fascinating to me. I have also found something similar from Slavic myths where water people have their little villages. I think it's the same with Welsh and Celtic myths. You can find some underwater towns.
Yes, you can. Yeah. That's so interesting.
It is.
There's so many interesting things around the kind of the different types of spells that you have in the book, and we'll get into. I've got a few questions on saunas because it comes up quite a lot. But there's a spell to stop rain which includes a blessing for QS sauna stoves. I'm sorry about my pronunciation.
Pretty good.
Thank you. And barrels of ale. Why do you think these two elements, like sauna culture and brewing, were so centrally placed in a charm against bad weather?
Oh, that's interesting. And it's a funny spell. I think they also wish like water for the woman's cauldrons, which I always thought sounds very witchy. And they sort of wish that the bad weather goes somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah.
We actually had a goddess whose whole thing was about brewing ale. Her name was Osmotar. She's not in this book. Maybe in the next one. I'm not that familiar with the brewing culture or the importance of the ale. I do know that people drank a lot, and ale was served in lots of festivities.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just in this poem, it has these descriptions of all things where people need water. So they are asking the water for the kettles and the kiuas and all things that we need in everyday life, all needed back in the days.
Yeah.
The sauna culture, well, that's a very large topic. I think I did read once that the oldest saunas or the sauna culture, it originates like 7,000 years, or it can be older than that.
Right. Okay. Wow.
Really interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and it's still such a prevalent thing in your part of the world.
Yes.
So going back to Väki, the Väki of water is categorized into healing and danger and aquatic life and mythic creatures. In terms of your spiritual practice, which of those aspects do you find yourself engaging with, if you're happy to share?
I think to me, it's more about the environment, my connection with the environment in my spiritual practice. I live on an island. I live in the archipelago, and I grew up in the coast, so we always had this proximity of the sea was like give and take.
Right.
And I'm quite familiar, like the landscape of a coast that's very close to my heart. And so to me, I think the väki of water is more about the landscape and the connection that I have with the landscape.
I like that a lot. Yeah.
Yes. Like I mentioned that I like to snorkel. To me, it's often that in my mind, I think, oh, I'm going to visit now the väki of water, or I make that kind of chance in my head before I go snorkeling. I'm going to visit the väki of water now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a particular word in Irish Gaelic, which it's very much like a word for longing or homesickness, but it's a longing for the sea. It's a longing for seeing the sea. I can't remember exactly what the expression is. It's not a very well known word. Like kuma is like the word for general longing or homesickness. But yeah, I think that relationship between landscape and people is captured in so many of the old ideas that come through in our folklore and mythology. So it's lovely to hear about your relationship with these older concepts and how it relates to your place, where you live and where you grew up. It's something I relate to.
Yeah. And I think today it can be very difficult to connect with the old goddess, because when it comes to Finnish folklore, we don't have that many myths that some other cultures might have.
Yeah.
So we rely a lot to these old folk poems. And some deities, there are more information about them than others. So we have to use our imagination. And then when it came to Vellamo, I had to think about how do we relate with her today? How can is she valuable today? And because we tend to take water for granted. And here in Finland, of course, we have so many lakes here. We have thousands of lakes. And I think in Finland, a lot of people, white swimming is very common here. A lot of people go white swimming. Sauna culture is still very common. I don't think it's ever going to go away entirely. But so I had to think about all these modern ways that we connect with this goddess. I also think she's connected with travel. She was invoked by the sailors back in the days when they were traveling. They asked Vellamo for good weather and good luck for their journeys. They asked her to control the winds, and so she can be invoked when traveling. She's she's also the goddess of healing. She was invoked when, if someone cut their finger, they could invoke Vellamo if they were healing that with cold water.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a text in the book that describes like a 3-layered worldview. I think it's Jelinkin, Keskinen, and Alien.
Yes.
I'm sure I've pronounced them incorrectly, so my apologies. How do I pronounce those?
Keskinen, alinen, and ylinen.
Ylinen. Okay, thank you.
Mm,
Can you tell us about those?
sure. So in Finno-Ugric cultures, it was very common to have a three-level worldview. Keskinen is the middle world. It's the world where we live, and it's also the place where the väki of water, väki of the forest, väki of the earth exists. Then there's ylinen. Ylinen is the upper world.
Mhm.
It's the world where the air spirits live, the gods of the air. Bear is a very important god in Finnish folklore. Bear lives in Ylinen, old ancestor. Also Ukko, the thunder god. Päivätär, the sun goddess. These are creatures of Ylinen. And Yli means like up in Finnish. Then we have Alinen, the underworld. That is the place of the dead, the ancestors.
Right.
And those underworld spirits. And there are different interpretations of these three worlds where they exist. I like this interpretation that these three worlds are actually our subconsciousness and our day consciousness. Because to me that makes sense.
Right.
And then when we sleep and when we meditate, then we can travel between these worlds. Oh, I can tell you about this one Finnish magical character that is not mentioned in the book, but it's really interesting. We had this horse spirit in Finnish folklore, and his name was Ikku, and he was created by the trolls from fire and ice. He was the first horse, and Ikku traveled between these three different worlds, and he delivered messages from gods to the people. But he could not travel in Keskinen during the summer because he would melt, so he could only travel in winter.
Right.
So I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, I like that.
Mm,
You included a poem for the origin of water. Could you tell us
yes.
that? Could you tell us that poem?
I'll see if I can find it here. Give me a moment. Oh, there it is. I can
Yep, please.
pronounce this. Dear water's origins is known, and the genesis of dew from the sky has water come, from the clouds in little drops. Then it rose in a hill, grew up in the crevice of a rock. Vesiviitta water cape, white the sun, Suoviitta swamp cape, son of Kaleva. Dug water from a rock, from a hill let water gush, with his golden stick, with his copper staff, and he let it gush from the hill. When he had brought it from the rock, the water wavered like a spring. It ran in a little rills. Then it increased in size. As a river it began to flow, as a stream to dash noisily, to thunder like a cataract, to the great sea, into the open sea below. Fire's genesis is from the sky, iron's origin from the iron ore, dear water's origin from the clouds. Water is the oldest of the brothers, fire is the youngest of the daughters, iron is the intermediate one. And that is from the magic songs of the Finns.
Fantastic. And are there other traditional song poems or chants for the origin of the other elements?
I think they are. I don't have my copy here with me because I have somewhere magic songs of the Finns. I haven't read every poem from it yet. There's origin of the trees. There's origin of the sun, I think.
Right.
Origin of skis.
Of skis.
I think there's yeah. It's absolutely lovely. I remember the animal poems the best because I like to read them the most. The cats were born in the sauna in the origin poem of the cat. It's just lovely. Origin of the bear was born in the starry sky. It's all really magical and fantastical. These are just absolutely gorgeous poems. The origin poems, it's a complete category in these Finnish folk songs.
Right.
And these were really performed magically in rituals when people wanted something from the universe.
That's lovely. I love that origin of the skis. That's well, it gives you an idea how important it was to the culture, but it still is. I remember being in Helsinki many years ago and chatting to some people in a pub, and somebody asked me if I could ski, and I'm like, no. And they were absolutely horrified. They're like, what? What do you mean you can't ski? We don't have that much snow in Ireland.
Yeah.
But moving on, you name Meliki, Vellamo, and Lovetar as the Holy Trinity. Firstly, can you pronounce them correctly? And secondly, can you tell us about them and how they relate to each other?
Sure. Mielikki and Loviatar, the pronunciations.
Thank you.
Mielikki is the goddess of the forest, and she's the goddess of hunt as well. And she was the first Finnish goddess who I related a lot with. I worked with her. I sort of I tend to see the different goddesses as more as archetypes rather than how to say it. I'm more of a pantheist, so I tend to see different goddesses as archetypes. But Mielikki is really interesting because she's a goddess of hunt, and she's also the goddess of wounded animals. So it's a bit of a contradiction.
Right.
And
yeah,
it's really interesting. But I also think, when you think about it, she might be just a goddess of ethical hunting in the end.
Right.
And Loviatar, she's the goddess of shamanism and witchcraft. But what happened with Mielikki is that when I was in my mid-20s, I was going through a bit of a crisis in my life. I stopped lots of very bad relationships that had bad impact on me. And Mielikki being the goddess of hunt and then also being the goddess of healing, I sort of needed that energy from her. So I meditated her a lot during that time.
Right.
And it helped. And I'd say maybe I could say that she was more like my matron goddess for a period of time. And then after I turned 30, I had this bit of a slump, sadness, felt sadness in my life, depression. It was very dark winter and just a bit of a seasonal depression, really.
Right.
And I just couldn't get over it. Like, what's wrong? I would like to feel more connected with the season. And it was one of those winters when we didn't get any snow and it was just really dark and rainy. And Loviatar, she wasn't originally the goddess of shamanism and witchcraft, and also she's also the goddess of death. So a lot of people see her as a very negative goddess. She's better known as Louhi, which is her another name. Some people think that they are two separate goddesses. I always thought that it was one of the same goddess or like the aspect of the same goddess. Each to their own.
Yeah.
But she gets a bad rep because she's also the villain in our anthology in Kalevala. And it's a whole other discussion. But she gets a bad rep because she's the goddess of death, and people always describe her a bit like a Baba Yaga character, this old hag who's terrible and terrifying, and a great witch and powerful, independent woman who's in her 90 years old, which is hilarious. And but originally, and I learned this from a Finnish folklorist some time ago, that first, in the beginning of times, there wasn't a goddess of witchcraft and death. This ruler of the underworld was a male goddess. But then at some point, the culture became more patriarchal, so the woman became the ruler of the underworld.
Right.
And Loviatar was originally possibly goddess of the moon, or maybe a Sami goddess who was sort of transported to Finnish folklore. It's a haze, we don't know. So she wasn't originally a goddess of any of those things. But then she developed into that. But I really like her as a goddess because she's very multi-layered.
Right.
During that time, I started to meditate Loviatar, and I wondered, am I going to see some kind of horrible visions because she has this bad reputation? But instead, I just felt loved, and I had these visions of snowflakes and snow falling down and northern lights and her giving me wisdom to pass on. So it was a very positive experience with her. And I decorated my whole apartment with snowflakes after that.
Oh, that's lovely.
Just connected her that way. So Vellamo is just the last one who I have worked with. And that started, a few years ago with my snorkeling hobby. Yeah. So maybe in the future some other comes, and we'll see how that goes.
Thank you for sharing that.
Anytime.
Yeah. You have a chapter on the väki of sauna, sauna rather, which I really loved. That was so interesting. I loved all the kind of the detail about the gathering of the different types of branches and in particular rituals. Could you tell us some of the traditions around sauna practice and some of the folk tales?
Yeah. It was very encompassing in the past how closely our lives were tied to saunas. Women gave birth in the saunas all the way to the 1960s,
Really?
at least in the areas where there wasn't hospitals. And it's very common. That's because it was a clean and sanitized area, and
right, okay.
It was easy to heat water in the sauna. So best place to give birth is the sauna. So that's also why in Finnish culture, saunas were seen as liminal spaces. Okay. So it was a gateway to the spirit world as well. And so women gave birth in the saunas. So the life starts in the sauna.
Right.
And then when people got married, groom went to the sauna with their friends. They had a sauna for the groom. Bride was washed in the sauna by her friends. So there were different rituals related to that as well. But the bridal saunas, they were only practiced in certain parts of Finland, not everywhere.
Right.
But, still part of life. And then when a person died, their body was kept in the sauna before the burial, so it could last from a few weeks to a month.
Right.
And when the body was kept in the sauna, that's when people thought that all kinds of spirits were on the move.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
God, I had no idea it was so embedded in so many aspects of Finnish life. That's incredible.
Yeah. it's really interesting when you go deeper into that.
Yeah, super interesting.
Mm.
I've got I think 2 more questions. There's a god called Ukko that you mention in the book. Could you tell us
Yes,
a little bit about
Ukko,
Ukko?
the thunder god.
Yeah.
Yes, Ukko is the god of thunder. He's the god of fertility, god of community. And when Christianity arrived to Finland, first in the form of Catholicism and later on by Lutheranism, Ukko was the one who was converted into the Christian god, because god of the sky,
Right.
Yeah, he's very similar to Thor, somewhat similar, and also Perkunas in Baltic countries. We have all these thunder gods in Europe who are somewhat connected with one another. I think Ukko is quite interesting. He was worshipped by a woman in summer solstice, and they performed love spells to her. And I did read once that Ukko had the ability to, sort of make infertile women fertile or something like that.
Interesting.
It's quite interesting. Yeah, but I think it has to do like fertility magic if you perform them in the summer or something. Right. Yeah. There was a festival for Ukko in called Ukonmakat, and it was usually celebrated around summer solstice.
Right.
But then people could also celebrate it, any day in the summer when the weather was warm. And it was just like people coming together in a community to celebrate the abundance of the land. And Vakka is a food sacrifice, so food was sacrificed for Ukko in Ukonmakat.
Right.
And he was an important god because he brought the rain with him and the thunder. And, rain and thunder meant that plants are going to grow.
Right.
So he was the god of agriculture in that sense as well. Then when we go back in history to more of the Neolithic times and the Stone Age, before Ukonmakat, before Ukko, there was Ukkolintu, the thunderbird. So it's quite fascinating because it does seem that there was some kind of totemism going on here, because people have worshipped bears and also moose.
Yeah.
But there's some archaeological evidence of worshipping swans. It's quite fascinating. So why not worship thunder god, which is the eagle?
Right.
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, super interesting. I didn't realize it was like a thunderbird.
Thunderbird.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's normally associated with North America, but clearly exists in Finland as well. That's really intriguing. Now, I've one kind of final question for you, and this isn't in the book, but it's a Finnish tradition which I mentioned to you when we spoke last, when we first attempted this call, and I'm absolutely fascinated by this particular bit of Finnish folk tradition, but the Nutipuki, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Yeah, could you tell us a little bit about that, if you know much about it?
Yes. So Nuutti was the end of the winter festival, and Nuuttipukki was, well, he was part of the mumming tradition.
Right.
And we also have Gekripukki, who visited people around Gekri, the Day of the Dead harvest festival.
Right.
And so Nuutti was celebrated on January 13, and Nuuttipukki and all these other mummers, they would visit from house to house I can't really remember everything about it, but it's I think they performed like raunchy jokes and plays for people in the house, and then they all went like after like going from house to house. They would go on to this one house where there would be a bigger celebration. Now we have lots of these booky characters in Finland because in around Christmas time there is Tapani Bukki, and he comes on the 26th of December, or he came on 26th of December, and he was like a person that was dressed like a fine lord, and that was after Saint Stefan, because it was the day of Saint Stefan, and Tapani was the god of horses, so it was he was the horse god, so these are like groups of mummers, and the Pukki is the leader of the mummers. And Nuuttipukki and Kekripukki also. In Kekri they would dress up into furs and clothes that were turned upside down. And it is believed that they might originate from some ancient fertility god, or some kind of god that is related to the household animals or the farm animals. It's hard to say. But it's the tradition of mumming. When people went mumming, these groups, and they would dress up in these furs. It's really to ward off evil spirits.
And the Nuuttipukki is dressed like a goat.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm fascinated.
Pukki means a goat in Finnish.
Right. Of course it does. Yeah, which we would have. It's similar to puck, and because a puck is a word for a goat in Ireland, and puka, puka, which is a derivative of it, is a type of trickster spirit.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's lots to that word. It's just interesting to see it come up again in Finland. I'm fascinated by these mummer traditions because they're so prevalent across Western Europe that I'm aware of. They might be in Eastern Europe as well. I'm not familiar, but yeah, like we still have versions of this in Ireland as well. But there seems to be this window of this activity that lasts from harvest time in August straight through to around Yule and up into January 13th here. Yeah, super interesting. Well, Niina, I've really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your knowledge with us. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. I really enjoyed reading it. Can you tell the audience when the book will be coming out, and where's the best place for them to find it, and indeed find you and more about your work?
Thank you for having me. I don't have the exact date yet, but it should be out in summer 2026, and you can get it from my website, and then from Moon Books, and also from all the different bookstores online and offline, hopefully. And you can find me from my website, fairychamber.org. And my YouTube channel is called Fairy Chamber as well, and my Instagram is Fairy Chamber Art. So you can just find me there.
Great stuff. Well, I'll put the links to that in the show notes. And thank you again for coming and sharing your knowledge with us today. It's been a really interesting conversation.
Yes, it was. Thank you so much for having me.
stuff. I really enjoyed that. I'm so curious and inquiring when it comes to the folklore of other nations. So it was a real delight to both read this book and talk with Niina herself. Now, as some of you may have guessed, my pronunciation of Finnish folk words, gods and goddesses, is pretty appalling. But there's no need to at me. I'm painfully aware of the fact. So, you can leave the messages in the drafts. And I'm going to leave it there. Oh, by the way, in the show notes, you'll find the links to Niina's work. And I think you can pre-order the book. I'm not 100% sure, but you can find out all the information at her website below. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I'm Darren Mason, and you'll be listening to Spirit Box. Take care and talk soon. Bye.